there was only one opportunity for me to get an equipment worth greater than 18 lakh rupees. Rest all were below about 10,000, 15,000 rupees. And the technique that I developed gave me international recognition, and at the same time, that equipment which was bought at 18 lakh rupees in 2005 and which started giving me the results were the results which I got with an equipment which I had assembled at 20,000 rupees. And I had a 10 years collaboration with Polish group of scientists. So that's where we have to have a bridge which is to be built between the industry and the academia. These are the remarks I wanted to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jaini, and thank you, Doctor. You put it up very, very nicely, the way you have summarized the talk. And I would also like to share my personal experience. It was a very, very pleasant surprise to be invited by one of the schools in Mumbai as a speaker, where they had set up a festival to break career myths for students in 9th and 10th standard. And Mr. Ajit Joshi was also there, Ritesh was also there, and we were invited as industry experts to talk about what is the expectation and how children can be better prepared to excel once they're out in the corporate world. And that says a lot about how we are preparing our future generation. And I think it's absolutely commendable that leaders like Mr. Jaini and Dr. Gupta have such fantastic thoughts. And I can't wait to see how our next generation is going to conquer the world. On that note, let's bring our next speaker on stage. Mr. Gabriel Lim is the Area Director for Contact Singapore's India team, prior to which he was in charge of the engineering and electronics industries for Contact Singapore India workforce team. Today, Mr. Lim will take us on a tour to the world's greatest city, Singapore. So please buckle up and welcome him on stage.
Thank you. I would very much like to take all of you on a tour, but unfortunately right now I can only share with you the information about working and living in Singapore, right? So, but anytime if you are in Singapore, feel free to look me up. I'll always be your guest over there, right? So before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to Dr. Suresh Chandra Gupta for organizing this event and for inviting Contact Singapore to be part of this conference, right? Also, Mr. Uttam Mane, Dr. Deshmukh, and Dr. Shriva Mangai, thanks for letting us use this very beautiful campus to hold our conference as well as our booth, right? Most of you, just to give you a bit of background, may be wondering why Contact Singapore, right? Essentially, we are a Singapore government organization, right? Why we are partnering with CSI, Computer Society of India, into organizing and sponsoring this event, right? So as Dr. Suresh Chandra Gupta rightly put, CSI is into the training and development of not just students but professionals, right? To helping them develop skill sets in the IT industry. For IT 2020, which is the future of the IT industry, and that encompasses big data, that encompasses cybersecurity, that encompasses IoT and smart nation, right? And for that reason, the Singapore government and the Singapore economy is very much in line with the same views, right? We also are looking at 2020. In fact, we are looking at beyond 2020, we are looking at 2030, right? To train up skill sets for the future, right? And also get the industry developed, right, in the areas of cybersecurity, right? Singapore wants to be the first smart nation in the whole world, right? Easy to do that because we are just an island. But in order to do that, we need the right skill sets, the right people, to work in our country. And this is why we are also partnering with CSI, to offer you guys here a potential opportunity, on top of working in India, you can also look at a potential chance to work in Singapore in the private sector companies. Right, so without further ado, I would just like to go straight into my slides to share with you more information today about my presentation, which is working and living in Singapore. So a little background about Contact Singapore. So essentially, as I mentioned, we are a government organization, and we are an alliance, right, of the Economic Development Board and the Ministry of Manpower, right? So the Economic Development Board looks at economic initiatives. So we want to build up industries in the areas of analytics, in the areas of cybersecurity, right? And the Ministry of Manpower tries to augment that by facilitating the employment passes to which foreign professionals come to work. So when the two come together, we are Contact Singapore, right? And essentially what we do, we engage overseas Singaporeans, right, and global professionals, meaning not just from India, but from all around the world, from the UK, from the US, to work in Singapore, right? We also link Singapore-based employers with the professionals based overseas, right? And that's the key thing of our role. So we work with companies like the big MNCs that have presence in Singapore. So the likes of your Accentures, Facebook, Googles. These are our partner companies, right? We don't provide the jobs. Our partner companies do. And we provide a link, a bridge between our partner companies to work in Singapore. Of course, we also work with investors to realize their investment interest in Singapore. So that's another aspect of the work that we do. Okay, here's a little overview of our global network. So as you can see, our offices encompass the whole world, right? We have offices in the US, in San Francisco, right? That's where Silicon Valley is, so no surprises on that. London, there's a big overseas Singaporean presence over there. That's why we're in London. Australia, and also in India. We are based in BKC in Mumbai. So my colleague Dinya is based in Mumbai. I'm actually based in Singapore, so I do. I'm like a tourist. I come every 2 weeks to Mumbai. In fact, I was sharing with Dinya yesterday. It was a record time for me to get from the aeroplane to my hotel. I took just 30 minutes to do that. Can you believe it? Surprising, right? Despite all the traffic, well, I managed to find a way to do that. I've been to India so many times now. I got on a ride. In the airport you have those it's like a car that drives around. So I just hop on it. They drove me straight to the passport. I was the first at the passport counter. When I got out, I got my bag, and I stay at JW Marriott in Mumbai, which is just next to the airport. So 30 minutes. This is Singaporean efficiency at its best, okay? But of course, if you are in Singapore, well, yes, don't be scared. It may seem that, we want to do things fast, we want to do things quick. Yes, it's pressure is there, but I can tell you, you Indians also work very, very hard. Right? I can see you guys replying emails to me on Saturday nights when I'm actually relaxing. So yeah. Okay, so I'm based in Singapore, so I cover India out of Singapore. So I do very frequent trips to India, right? And now I just want to move on to a little bit of tidbits about the Singapore economy. For those of you who have not been to Singapore, who do not know much about the economy here, this would be useful. So we are a small country. Our population is just 5.5 million. Pales in comparison to India, right? 4 main languages: English, Chinese, Malay, Tamil. So the main language of business would be English. So it's very easy for you to get around, if you get lost on the road, or you want to ask someone for directions, it's easy. You can communicate to everyone in English, right? Almost everyone can understand that. And we also have our main languages of Chinese, Malay, and Tamil, because we have the different races. So like I myself am Chinese, so I also speak Chinese. The Malays are the so-called the natives of the land, right? So they were there for since a long time, right? And Tamil, because a lot of the Indian immigrants to Singapore came from the state of Tamil Nadu, so that's why it's one of the main languages. We are 2.5 hours ahead of India, and exchange rate is 1 Singapore dollar is to 50 Indian rupees, right? Okay, so this will be interesting. Many of you may ask what constitutes the Singapore economy. And this will actually link me to the reasons why we create jobs in these different sectors. So if you look at the right-hand side of the pie chart, that is the sectors that our parent organization, EDB, actually contributes to, right? So areas like manufacturing, business services, finance and insurance, right? So these are the main areas that the EDB looks at growing. And so we support them by augmenting it with manpower from all around the world, right? More importantly, business services, that covers the IT industries. And that is something that the Singapore government is moving more and more towards, from the old economy to the new economy. So the old economy was manufacturing. As you can see, it's still a bigger chunk. So we did a lot of electronics manufacturing, machinery manufacturing, but that is the old economy. And now we are moving towards the digital economy, right? So that's where smart nations, IoT comes in. And that is why we need people to fill that gap in these areas. Okay, Singapore is no stranger to international recognition, right? I mean, I was speaking to Narendra from, I think, what's the name? Vista InfoSec, right? So he told me that he gave me a very good story about Singapore. He knows a lot more about Singapore than me. I think he can actually stand up here and speak for me instead. He told me that, Singapore is such a clean, green, and safe city, right? He told me that, the cost of living is, compared to India, I mean, his belief is that it's not as high as what people think it is. Well, I think there's some truth in it. It depends on how you want to live. And I think most importantly is, how, efficient we do our things. The traffic there is not as bad as in other countries. I know India is very, very hard to get around because of the traffic, but the reason is because we are very efficient and we are also a very safe city to be in, right? So I think one important point to highlight is that we are the best city in Asia to live in because you can get around easily. You feel very peaceful there. You can raise your family there, and that's one other thing that Narendra brought up, which is he wanted to move his whole family there because it was such a great city to live in, right? Okay, now just want to highlight more on the key industries in Singapore and in particular pertaining to India market, right? So there are a couple that would be of relevance to you guys over here. The first would be financial services. So Singapore is one of the finance hubs in Asia Pacific after Hong Kong. Many of the big multinational banks like Standard Chartered, Citibank, HSBC have their presence in Singapore, right? And one very important key function of the banks is, of course, the IT team, right? And that comprises a lot of the security side, the risk compliance teams, right? And so that's where the opportunity lies for you guys over here. So we are looking to hire, or rather the banks are looking to hire people who have skill sets in risk management, compliance, asset management, wealth management, and technology. So the technology part is where I think it will apply to most of you guys over here. Similarly, for accountancy services, in areas like audit, internal audit, assurance, advisory in cybersecurity, analytics, risk management, these are also relevant areas, right? So the big four consulting and accounting firms, KPMG, EY, PwC, they are all having their big headquarters in Singapore. Of course, for infocoms and media, so that stretches out across different verticals. So we are also looking for data analysts and data scientists. And the skill sets that we're looking at are in the areas of machine learning, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and data mining. Likewise for cybersecurity, right? Singapore government is placing a lot of emphasis on this. So I'll share a little bit more on the slides later, but essentially the skill sets that we are looking at here are more of the white hats, ethical hackers, your cybersecurity, forensics, and malware researchers, right? And of course, we are looking for people with good certifications If you are certified with CSIP or CISA or Certified Ethical Hacker or Offensive Security Certified Professional, then you are the ones we are looking for. Right? Okay, just a little bit of background about our analytics ecosystem. There's quite a wide range of companies that offer jobs in Singapore for analytics, right? From your platform providers to your service providers and your end user firms, right? So if I could just point out companies like Accenture, they have the Analytics Innovation Center based in Singapore. And that center takes charge of the Asia Pacific operations. So you're not just doing projects, if you work with Accenture Singapore, you're not just doing projects in Singapore, you're doing projects for Asia Pacific, right? So you may even get a chance to come back to India to do some projects. But the whole point is you can even go to countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, Korea. And what that means for you and your career is that, it's on an upward trajectory. You get experiences that most other people don't get. They only get a one country experience. You get a multi-country experience, right? So that's where, companies like Accenture,